Hello, writers! Wait a second. Oh my goodness, I'm so crazy today. Welcome back. We are going to be writing another letter. Now, we've really been focusing on the 5 parts of a letter. The heading, the greeting, the body, the closing, and the signature. So, what I did today was I wrote a letter to another teacher. You're going to write a letter to a teacher too. I already wrote my letter. What I want to do with you today is to go over my letter and see if it makes sense. A good writer always rereads his or her work to see if it makes sense. You don't want to send a letter to somebody if your writing doesn't make sense. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to reread my work and how I can fix it so that it sounds okay. Here we go, writers. So, writers, here is my finished letter. But wait a second, it's not really finished because I did not go back and reread my work to see if it makes sense. So I'm going to do that with you right now. So I want you to think at home, does that sentence make sense? Let's look at the date, March 11th, 2021. I have my uppercase and my comma. That looks like it makes sense. Dear Mrs. Cavanda, I have an uppercase for her name, and a comma. So that makes sense too. I'm going to read my first sentence. Me love working with you. Does that sentence make sense? I sort of sounded like a baby when I was talking. Me love working with you. I know that in the subject of my sentence, I do not start with the word me. In the subject of my sentence, I always use the pronoun I. So I'm going to change that sentence. Now I'm going to reread it and see if it makes sense. I love working with you. That for sure makes sense now. So I can move to my second sentence. Me and Mrs. Zarati love to hear your hilarious stories about your family. Me and Mrs. Zarati. I learned that I should come in the subject of my sentence. So now I'm going to write I instead of me. Me does not come in the subject. I and Mrs. Zarati. Why doesn't that sound right? I remember learning that it's always polite to let the other person go before me. So in the subject of my sentence, I should always be second. So I'm going to write Mrs. Zarati's name first because that's the polite thing to do. Mrs. Zarati and I. Let's see if that makes sense. Mrs. Zarati and I love to hear your hilarious stories about your family. Now that sentence makes sense. I'm going to look at my next sentence. Can you tell I a new story soon? That sentence doesn't make sense. I know you is the subject. I never use I in the predicate. In the predicate of a sentence, I should be using the pronoun me when I want to talk about myself. Can you tell me a new story soon? Does that sentence make sense? It does. Now it makes sense. So I'm going to move to my next sentence. Do you like working with I? Something in that sentence doesn't sound right. Let me find the subject in my sentence. The word you is my subject. So if I already have a subject, I know that I can't use I in my sentence. The pronoun that I use in the predicate of my sentence is the word me when I'm talking about myself. Let me reread that sentence and see if it makes sense now. Do you like working with me? That makes sense. Oh my goodness, I only have one more sentence left to check. Me hope you will write back soon. Wait a second. Me hope you will write back soon? I sound like a baby. That doesn't make sense. Me cannot be the subject of my sentence. When I need the subject of my sentence, I use the pronoun I when I want to talk about myself. I hope you will write back soon. That makes sense now. Sincerely, I have my uppercase letter and my comma. And my name, Mrs. Chimura. And both of my letters are uppercase. Do you see how they go into the top space? Make sure you're doing that too. Now my letter makes sense. Okay, writers, it's your turn. You are going to write a letter to a teacher. You can choose any teacher that you want to write to. The thing I want you to focus on today, I know you remember the 5 parts of a letter. Now I want you, after you finish your letter, to make sure you reread your letter to see if it makes sense. You do not want to send a letter that doesn't make sense. So it's very important that you reread your work and make sure it makes sense. I'll see you soon, writers. Bye.